Sup foreheads, welcome to my top 20 films of 2019 video. I know I promised in the last video that this would come out before the new year, but I was doing stuff, so to begin with, a few honorable mentions. Those are going on the screen now. And I also want to shout out, as the main honorable mention, I Trapped the Devil, the film from Josh Lobo, a compact, single-location horror thriller, very stylish, very fun to watch, very compelling debut from him. Number 20, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you listen to the 444 podcast, you know I wasn't super hot on this film coming out of the theater, but since then, in the gestation process, I think in my head I've come to appreciate its nuance a little bit more. My initial prediction was that the more cursory Tarantino fans, the Kill Bill heads out there, were not going to appreciate this for its lack of violence and over-the-top action. But really, I think I've come to realize that's why I like it. I like that Tarantino has done something here a little bit more mellow, a little bit more original, a little bit less cynical. It's still Tarantino, it's still self-indulgent, but I think upon further viewings, this will grow on me even more. Number 19 is Lynn Shelton's Sword of Trust. Sword of Trust was a sort of low-key release, a mumblecore film of sorts with Marc Maron and Jillian Bell. It's a film I thought was very funny, very inventive, does a lot with very little. It's a small cast, not many sets, and yet it delivers the goods through comedic timing. It's got an interesting, original narrative, and it also has a lot of heart. I think Maron gives one of his best performances in anything here. I'm a big fan of Maron's, and seeing him get the opportunity to be dramatic and also very funny, alongside some other great comedic talents, was a good time. Number 18 is Knives Out, one of the most fun movies of the year, a true ride. It's a great ensemble cast. It's a good detective mystery film, something we're not seeing a lot. Rian Johnson has a great grip on genre filmmaking. He put together a really smart script for this, and it's really great to see Daniel Craig outside of just doing James Bond, as well as Ana de Armas. Not a breakout role, because we already knew about her, but in a maybe a mainstream breakout role. It's a colorful film, it's a stylish film, and it will be returned to in the future. Number 17 is Jojo Rabbit. I wouldn't usually use the word cute to describe something I like. I don't like things that are intended to be cute as their main appeal, but Jojo Rabbit is a film I don't feel bad calling cute in a good way. Roman Griffin Davis and Thomasin McKenzie as the two leads are excellent. They have great chemistry. Taika Waititi's script is hilarious. It's very touching, very charming, and also a little bit dark. Scarlett Johansson gives one of her better performances of the past few years. Much better than some of the other films that she was in this year. Maybe that's a hot take, but I thought it was better than her turn in Marriage Story. You've also got a great supporting cast. You've got Sam Rockwell, Alfie Allen, and Rebel Wilson. Taika Waititi himself plays a facsimile of Hitler, an imaginary version of Hitler. And then, although the imaginary Hitler thing is kind of the gimmick of this film, I think it's also probably one of the weakest parts. Thankfully, it's not the most significant part either. Check out Jojo Rabbit. Number 16 is Dr. Sleep. I'm a big fan of Kubrick's The Shining, and I knew that they were making this sequel based on Stephen King's novel. Although the strange part is that Stephen King's novel sequel contains references to things that did not happen in Kubrick's movie, but rather Stephen King's original novel. So this is kind of a bold film that kind of adapts Stephen King's Dr. Sleep novel, but also the Kubrick film. And it is nuts. You've got steam, vampires, ghosts, astral projection, psychic powers, the whole thing. And although it is very silly, this film manages to pull it off. It's a really fun, compelling blockbuster ride. Number 15 is The Art of SelfDefense, another sort of low-key release this year from Riley Stearns. This is sort of an offbeat, disturbing, dark humor, dark comedy, dry comedy. Lots of stuff to like here. It's sort of a critique of toxic masculinity, at least the way I read it, but also not very in-your-face about its message or whatever. The tone is very unique. it's a very bizarre narrative that is very unexpected. If you don't know anything about the plot of this film, I say stay away from reading anything and just go ahead and watch it, especially if you like Jesse Eisenberg, as I do. Number 14 is Booksmart, which is the directorial debut from Olivia Wilde. Wilde did a fantastic job with this film. The way it's directed, it's very stylish, it's very fun, it wears its heart on its sleeve, it's very funny. The two leads, Caitlin Dever and Beanie Feldstein, both give really good performances. A lot of people have compared this to Superbad, but I think it deserves to be recognized as its own thing, and I think it belongs with the ranks of maybe Superbad and Can't Hardly Wait as end-of-high-school coming-of-age films. Lots to admire there, great editing, great soundtrack, a lot of fun to watch. Number 13 is Paddleton. If you didn't catch Paddleton, it's a Netflix original with Mark Duplass and Ray Romano, in a fantastic performance from Ray Romano on this. From what I understand, it's a mostly improvised film. It's another sort of mumblecore production. It's a very simple narrative, but one that's used very effectively. It's a very, very, very dark comedy with a great sense of tone. It kind of pushes the boundaries in uncomfortable situations, and that's something I really connect with. This is a film that's a bit hard to watch, especially with how harrowing it is, but it's also a great cinematic experience. You will be compelled, and I really enjoyed it. Number 12 is Cold Pursuit. I kind of took a chance on this one. It's a Liam Neeson revenge movie, but it's the Liam Neeson revenge movie that's not really a Liam Neeson revenge movie. It's a dark comedy disguised as an action film. Although it was sort of marketed like Taken, but in the snow, it's more like Fargo, with sort of these bumbling villains, crazy side plots with colorful supporting characters, a lot of dark humor, a lot of humor based in violence. Got a very bizarre presence, if you will. It's a film that we're not seeing a lot of now. It's self-aware, it's having fun, but it also has some political underpinnings that weren't in your face or overbearing. It was also nice to see Liam Neeson kind of having fun with the role instead of just putting out another B movie of revenge schlock. Number 11 is a film that was on the top 10, off the top 10, floated in between for me. One I really couldn't decide on, and I think number 11 is probably the most apt place to put it, and that is Marriage Story. I thought this was a great film, really great cast, incredible performance from Adam Driver, great performances from Laura Dern and Ray Liotta. It's sort of a heart-rending film about a divorce, a marriage dissolving. I'm a big fan of Noah Baumbach's films, and this really hit the spot for that. It's about people who are generally unlikable, but you do find a bit of a piece of yourself in them. And overall, it's a very compelling experience. There's a lot of great sequences in this. Adam Driver has a musical moment that is quite powerful. There's a comedy bit that involves a knife that's pretty amazing. And really, I think the film's getting a bad rap because there's been a lot of memes regarding its most intense scene that have been floated around, which is really the downfall of releasing films on Netflix. I was lucky. I watched this on the big screen at a festival, but for a lot of people, they're just getting this snippet on Twitter, which is a bummer because it totally sucks the drama out of that scene, seeing it out of context. A lot of the criticisms are, acting isn't just yelling or whatever, but that's the only scene in the movie where they yell. It really bugs me, so if you haven't seen this, or if you're judging it based on the memes or whatever, give this movie a shot. It's a good film. Number 11 for 2019. And now to the top 10, the coveted top 10 films of 2019. Number 10 is Jordan Peele's Us. And there was a lot of hype for this film coming into 2019. We wanted to see what Jordan Peele was going to do next, now that he has a bigger budget, bigger studio. And I personally didn't think he disappointed. Us is a really fun ride, a great blockbuster film. The central performance from Lupita Nyong'o is incredibly admirable. She gives a powerhouse here, and I think she should be nominated for the Best Actress, if not to win it. I think Jordan Peele really delivered something that we don't get to see very often these days, which is an original studio blockbuster film, a film with some risk involved, a film that is saying something, a film with a wild concept. And while this film didn't have the social and cultural impact that maybe Get Out had, I think still a lot of people really did enjoy it, and it's going to be recognized as one of the best films of 2019, as I'm doing right now. Number 9 is the other side of the coin. Unlike the originality in blockbuster filmmaking that Us provided, number 9 is going to be Avengers Endgame. It's no secret that I'm a notorious hater of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think the films, in general, are assembly line, cinematic Mad Libs, and nothing has consequence. There are no stakes, and it's impossible for me to get connected to characters when I never feel that they're actually in danger, or that they're going through arcs, or having real experiences. But I was proven wrong when I saw Endgame. Endgame is the first Marvel film where I really felt like things were becoming final. Endgame made these characters come to life. It made their struggles feel real. It made the idea of loss feel real. It was difficult to overcome the defeat from Infinity War, and these are things that were just new for Marvel because they never really made good on their promises. The films were so often felt like a subscription service, and this one finally cashed in on all the potential energy of all of these films, and did so with this really fun to watch 3-hour epic blockbuster that really stretched all over the universe, and with a huge range of characters without losing sight of all of the interesting parts of this world. I particularly liked the middle section of this film, the heist, the time heist, as some people are calling it. That part really made pieces of the other films feel important, feel necessary, as well as use that time travel element to an emotional advantage. What with Captain America finding his old girlfriend and Tony Stark meeting his father. Although much to my dismay, they are going to continue making Marvel movies. I thought Avengers Endgame was a very suitable ending to a blockbuster franchise that will define the decade, for better or worse. At number 8 is a film directed by a man who is my personal nemesis. 444 podcast listeners will know that Mr. Robert Eggers of The Lighthouse blatantly plagiarized my film The Space. If you're a Lighthouse head, go ahead, check out The Space, link in the description. But in all seriousness, I did really enjoy The Lighthouse. It was a sort of rare experience of completely engrossing aesthetics with a psychological narrative, a surreal kind of atmosphere that is very hard to come by. I think this film is an obvious testament to the painstaking qualities of great filmmaking, of great production design by building sets, of great acting by pushing actors to their limits. It's a film that's hard to take your eyes off of. It is a fantastic piece of filmmaking. So to all of you out there, reach out to Robert Eggers, tell him to come on the 444 podcast. There are some questions that need to be answered. And number 7 is a film that I didn't get to see until very recently, and I am so glad I did. It's Portrait of a Lady on Fire. One of the best received foreign art house films of the year, and for good reason. It's a beautiful film, a gorgeously produced, tender, romantic, poetic story. Very cathartic, very, very authentic, very believable. The two leads are phenomenal, and I don't want to try and pronounce their names because I sincerely do not want to butcher them, but they are both fantastic actresses. It might be a cliche to say, but the visuals of this film are so painterly, so intentional, so meticulous, and I really appreciate them. It's a very cathartic film, something I think anyone could connect with, as well as a very unique vision and beautiful expression. I particularly loved the scene around the campfire where the music starts playing, the repetitive rhythmic music. It's very, very cerebral and engrossing, and it's a wonderful film. At number 6 is a film that Robert Eggers would pronounce as Midsommar. If you're hip, you know that Midsommar has pretty much been like the biggest indie hit of the year, and for good reason. This is a film that will come to define indie horror filmmaking for years to come. Ari Aster has proven himself an auteur of the highest sense. This is a film of great craft. It's a very potent film, a film that uses every second to its advantage. It creates great atmosphere. It's a very original film in its use of this sort of daytime folk horror, something you don't see. I think it's the film that you could probably say broke Florence Pugh, although Fighting with My Family, she also gave a good performance. Shout out, that was a good film as well. This is a film that I think will be sort of this landmark emblem of A24's influence on films. It's a tremendous cinematic experience. It's a lot of fun to watch. The aesthetics are fantastic. It's a great film. I really don't know what else to say that anybody else hasn't said already. Number 5 is Uncut Gems. If you'd like to hear a more in-depth discussion on Uncut Gems from yours truly, roll it back to the 444 podcast, episode 26, where we talked about it. But this is a tremendous piece of filmmaking from the Safdie brothers. It's a film that utilizes every aspect of the filmmaking process to its fullest extent. The Safdies are just another example of auteurs born of the A24 brand. These guys seem to know exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it. There are so many great sequences in this where you feel in the scene. It's an adrenaline thrill ride that will grab you and not put you down. It's stylish. It reminds me a lot of the sort of new Hollywood filmmaking of Scorsese, Schlesinger, or William Friedkin. Sandler gives a very good central performance. I wouldn't describe it as the transformative career-defining dramatic moment for him that so many other people want to call it. I think his Meyerowitz stories or Punch Drunk Love characters are probably more likely for that title. But nevertheless, he sells this role. He nails all of his comedic beats. And really, this film is just a hell of a ride. An incredible piece of filmmaking. And speaking of Scorsese, number 4 is the man himself with The Irishman. Scorsese has been in the news all year for different reasons. For one, his comments on Marvel, not unlike the ones I made earlier in this video. He criticized the MCU and superhero films as being these roller coaster rides not meant to make you feel and think and learn, as well as them being products that are taking away money, potential funding for original visions. You also have one of the top grossing films of the year blatantly ripping direct narratives and characters from Scorsese's own work, some of his best films, King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. So in a year where Scorsese has been more relevant than he has in a long time, he delivers this film, The Irishman, and it makes his words feel even more significant. The Irishman has one of the great casts of the year. You've got Joe Pesci out of retirement. You've got Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel, Action Bronson. And this film is just a brilliant script, packing weight in every scene. Every moment feels heavy, feels important. The relationships that are built in this film feel very real. It's a film about loyalty, I think. It's a film about legacy, of which I think Scorsese is really dealing a lot with, especially in his age. And with some of these comments he's made, and like I said, with Joker. And what's so impressive about this film, beyond its just fantastic performances and genius editorial choices and directorial choices, is that it would be so easy for Scorsese to be self-parody at this point, for him to be making a mob film with actors that he's worked with tons of times, playing characters that are not that different from ones in his other films. But he turns in this film that is so aware of his career, one that subverts the expectations of mob films, of mob filmmaking. This is a film that addresses aging, that addresses facade. It's a film that rips the tablecloth out from under the glorification of mob characters in films, something that he himself is not necessarily excused from promoting. And that's what's brilliant, is he knows this, and he makes this film in an effort to expose his own failures as an artist in some way. And it's a really beautiful thing. It's a super compelling film. It's worth your time. So, The Irishman. Check it out on Netflix. Number 3 is, I believe, the best reviewed film of the year. One of the most hyped films of the year. The winner of the Palme d'Or, the most prestigious film award in the world to many, including myself, and that is Parasite. I really don't want to say that much about Parasite because I walked in with absolutely no information, having read nothing, only knowing that it was a very well-reviewed film, a film from Bong Joon-ho, respected Korean filmmaker and winner of the Palme d'Or. And I want you to have the same experience if you have not seen the film, so I will be cautious with my remarks. Parasite is a film that seems to hit every note of the cinematic spectrum. It is frightening, it is thrilling, it is funny, it has got heart, it's a politically pointed film, it's a film that has something to say. All of the central performances are fantastic, it's shot well, the editing is super tight, there's not a second wasted, so many great sequences. It's kind of a devastating experience, an absolutely essential viewing if you're into films at all. I think it's one of the best films made in many years and will stay that way for years to come. The top 2 films, I think, are special because sometimes you watch something and you think, this feels like it was almost made for me, and you connect with it on a level that you just don't find in other things. And these top 2 films for me from 2019 are definitely in that category. Number 2 is Her Smell from Alex Ross Perry. I had not seen any of Alex Ross Perry's work until I saw this film, and subsequently went to go watch the rest, and I have discovered a new favorite filmmaker in him. Her Smell is a riveting, compelling, gripping portrait of an aging punk rock star played by Elizabeth Moss, who gives an absolute powerhouse performance. It's a lot of the backstage life of being an artist, of being a musician, being a rock star. I'm a big fan of films that are about artists, or especially unlikable artists. I'm a big fan of musicians in film. I really like simulated culture. I think the film really creates this authentic feeling world of characters and icons, and then gives them real conflict, complex characters to deal with these difficult problems and relationships. It's a film that you'll feel very, very close to, the way it's shot. I love the way the film is shot. It's got this gritty, in the face of the actor, handheld camera work. It reminds me a lot of like a John Cassavetes film. I think Perry has often mentioned Cassavetes as a influence. It's a really sort of moving film in how attached you'll get to the characters and how much you'll appreciate their arcs and the experience overall. Alex Ross Perry, well done. Number 1 is a film that just strikes me in such a unique way. As I said, sometimes a film feels like it's made for you. I think Harmony Korine's The Beach Bum was made for me. This is a film with this surreal, absurd, bizarre, dark sense of humor that is supplemented with this incredible eye for the carnivalesque. It has a subtle but biting sense of satire, and it's a film that seems to love its characters despite their flaws. Harmony Korine has always made films about outsiders, about weirdos, about freaks. Korine's early films, he was trying to find the beautiful parts of the grotesque, and now I think he's trying to find the grotesque parts of the beautiful. In between Spring Breakers and The Beach Bum, there is this exploration of the darkness of the privileged. There is a critique of the self-important, of the self-destructive, and simultaneous with that kind of criticism, there is this love for the weirdness of these people, of the fantastical elements of what is otherwise a grounded life. For as much of the world that he builds that is insane, there is something very real happening as well. And also, it's just a ton of fun to watch. It's a hilarious movie. The supporting cast in particular really helps McConaughey here, who's also amazing on his own. Jonah Hill in particular really cracked me up. The Snoop Dogg's performance in this. There's a Jimmy Buffett cameo or two. Isla Fisher is great in this. Zac Efron plays a character that you could not imagine. Watch this movie. It's a mellow film. It's psychedelic. It's sort of laid back and absurd, but it also seems to reckon with very existential matters. The film blends the serious, the hilarious, the absurd, the grim, and it all just kind of works for me. It's a film that's risky, it's a film that's bold, and it's the exact kind of film that I would love to make. And Harmony Korine has always been a favorite, and this is just another example of why he is a sort of a hero for me in filmmaking. So The Beach Bum is my number one of 2019. Thanks for watching, friends. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel, please. I'm trying my best here. Watch or listen to the 444 podcast. It's now available, now streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google, Castbox, Breaker, all sorts of things. Especially if you like hearing me talk about films, that is a recurring theme on the 444 podcast. So check it out, please, if you like, whatever. And I'll see you next year for another roundup of the best films of 2020, hopefully. Hopefully there are some good ones. Hopefully we're all still alive. Hopefully, whatever. Anyway, later.